Should I study Chinese medicine and acupuncture in China? This is a very common question I get asked from practitioners, other acupuncturists, and I recently had a student reach out to me and had the same question. I am a licensed acupuncturist practicing in Australia, and I spent almost up to a decade studying Chinese medicine in China, and here's what I learned. So before I get into the pros and cons of studying in China for a very long time, I'll go into how I even ended up China for almost a decade. So back in 2005, I had just finished my undergraduate degree in economics from the University of Illinois, and I had just graduated. I was about 24 years old, and I literally had no idea what I wanted to do with my life. I can get into how I got into Chinese medicine in another video, but basically, long story short, I went there for 3 months just to try it, see if I liked it. Ended up actually falling in love with it, even more than martial arts, which I had originally intended to go for the purpose of training. And I ended up liking Chinese medicine, acupuncture, Toina even more, and ended up staying over 8 years. So back in 2005, I enlisted and enrolled in language school because in order to get into Chinese medicine school, you need to be proficient in reading and writing Chinese and also speaking. So I spent about a year and a half trying to pass this exam called the HSK. So it's the 汉语水平考试, which is basically a Chinese language exam. So that exam was incredibly hard. And even if you do pass it, it's kind of like getting into test into medical school. It's pretty much like trying to test into medical school on a 5th grade reading level. It's nowhere near where your reading level needs to be. But I passed the test, got in, and I started my Chinese medicine studies my first year in 2008. So that first entire year, I did not sleep at all because I spent all night translating literally word for word. It would take me about 3 hours just to translate one page, and I was always behind, and I literally got no sleep that first year. So without getting into too much detail, back then there were no apps. So I had to basically kind of just every single word look it up until I got the hang of things. So it took almost a year before I could actually read proficiently after that. Luckily, my second year, they had a English program that just opened up. So it was the entirely new program. Unfortunately, they've scrapped it. I was at the Guangzhou University of Chinese Medicine. They no longer have an English-speaking program, but 10, 15 years ago, they did have one, and I was able to transfer into that group. But all the while, I still would go to the Chinese classes and I just needed that time to digest the Chinese, but eventually I got caught up to it. So did that, did the hospital rotations and finished the classes, did the placements, and ended up graduating in 2012. And then that's how I ended up immigrating and moving to Australia. So I'll get into the pros in studying Chinese medicine. So the number one obvious pro in advantage you have from studying in China is basically Chinese medicine was the original spot. That's where it originated. So if you want to learn something, you want to go straight to the source, which makes sense. In terms of clinical experience and the amount of patients that you get to see and treat, it's by far nothing compares to it. You see, I would say, more patients in a day than you would probably a month in your clinic back in Western countries, because there's just so many people and you get exposed to so many different types of diseases, ailments, things that you would actually not even treat in your clinic, in an acupuncture or Chinese medicine clinic, because you literally have a whole hospital full of people. So I was in Guangzhou, southern China, so where Chinese medicine still is very, very strong and it's used by the local people as well. So in terms of clinical experience and exposure, I would say nothing compares to it. It's you get so much experience compressed into such a short amount of time. The other advantage or pro in studying Chinese medicine in China is it's actually completely integrated in the hospital system. So you get to see firsthand how Chinese medicine is used alongside Western medicine within the same confines, like within the same facility. So imagine you had a lower back pain patient and they came in, they go to concierge and the information desk says, hey, what's the problem? What can I help you with? And they go, hey, I have lower back pain. So, okay, cool. Go get an x-ray first, and then the report comes back, and then they'll look at it and they'll go, okay, this looks like it needs surgery. Okay, go to orthopedics. Oh, this looks like it's a minor strain. Okay, or a sprain. Go to acupuncture or go to Tui Na. So Chinese medicine isn't like this thing where they treat kind of like on a side thing, or they see it as an allied health or alternative medicine. It's considered almost primary medicine in China. So you're treated just like any other doctor. There's no kind of like this, oh, I'm a Western medicine doctor, I'm a Chinese medicine doctor. Like everyone is equal and everyone's just trying to help people and get patients feeling better. I would say one of the biggest advantages of studying Chinese medicine in China is you get to learn not just the Chinese medicine, but you get to see a lot of Western medicine as well. So back pain is not, I learned that back pain sometimes is not always back pain. It could be a kidney infection, it could be PID, it could be related to other issues. And it's not very, I can't say one-dimensional, but you get a lot of different perspectives, and coming from different departments and having different rotations. We spent a month in gynecology, we spent another month in pediatrics, we spent another month in orthopedics, so we got to go and take anatomy with dissection, so we were able to do that. So all these things, it was actually the same experience as you would as any medical student in a Western country. So the only difference is, rather than going off into your specialty of, say, general practice or any other department, or endocrinology, your department is acupuncture, your department is Tui Na, your department is Chinese medicine. So it's just treated just like any other department in any hospital setting. And one of the most unexpected pro or advantage I didn't even expect from learning Chinese medicine and living in China for almost a decade is the friends I made, the connections I made. I would say that was actually the most important thing, I'd say, because I met people that were studying Chinese medicine, I met people in language school, and it's kind of like almost like going to private school, and the connections you get over there. Like, I didn't even think about it, but only rich people and well-off people send their kids to China. So I met kids there were 18, 19, 20. They were sent from Korea to run factories that their fathers were getting ready to retire. They were getting ready to take over the empire. I met people from Europe, France, South America, and Europe. And I met friends that I still talk to this day. I mean, even 10, 15 years later, we still keep in touch. We still hang out. And they're always like, hey, when are you going to come visit me in Europe? Hey, when are you going to come visit me in South America? When are you going to come to Korea? So I almost was able to build this whole network of friends that I can visit anytime, and I have friends all over the world that I can visit now. The other advantage I see, or I noticed, is there's many more opportunities in China. So China is kind of like this up-and-coming country, and there's so much money there and lots of opportunities. So how I got through was, I was lucky. I had the financial support and backing of my parents, but on the side, on the weekend, I would be teaching English, and there would always be companies looking for interpreters or translators, or just being a foreigner in general. People are interested in you, so that can be an advantage. It could also be a disadvantage. So my friends that looked foreign, they didn't look Chinese, they had opportunities, they had people coming up to them. My friend Marcel, they used to call him Richard Gere, because he had the salt and pepper white hair going on. So people thought he was a celebrity. They were like chasing him, talking to him, everything, and he was loving it. I was kind of jealous of them sometimes, but then that looking like a foreigner in China also has its disadvantages as well. Some people try to take advantage of you, but there are many. I would say the advantages are much more than the disadvantages, however. So for me, I look Chinese. I am Chinese ethnically. I speak Cantonese and Mandarin at home. So, however, culturally, I didn't really fit in, and it was just kind of like this thing where I would go places and I wouldn't really know how to read sometimes or the signs or things. I just didn't like. People could just tell I wasn't from there, but that was fine. That was kind of an experience as well. So. But the thing is, it opened so many doors. I met so many people. So I met a lot of people that started off in Chinese medicine with the intention of going back and opening a practice, and they ended up going completely different. They ended up working for big companies, or they met someone, they started businesses of their own. So some people are not even in Chinese medicine anymore, and maybe they're better for it. And they're very happy with the choices that they made. So it was kind of like an adventure of a lifetime. Like if you're in your 20s, you don't have kids, you don't have the responsibility of a family to take care of. I think in your 20s, that's probably the best place to go, because you never know where you end up and where life takes you. Because if I had stayed in Chicago, I would probably just end up stuck in a rut in Chinatown, working with my dad in his clinic in a hole in the wall pretty much. Okay, so let's talk about the cons and the disadvantages of learning Chinese medicine. So number one, it is a time commitment. So the programs there are actually now that I take that back, there are short-term programs that you can, observation programs at the Guangzhou University of Chinese Medicine, you can enroll as a foreigner. So you can stay for anywhere from 2 days to 2 weeks to 2 months to even years. So most foreigners that we would see were actually from South America, Australia, USA as well. Germans, a lot of Germans would come as well, at least once a year. And they would come for about 2 weeks. So for me, I was all in. So I went 5 years straight and just graduated from there. I spent the whole time over there as well. But I would say the biggest disadvantage is I learned so many skills, a bunch of skill sets that are actually out of my scope. And I can't even use in my own practice day to day in Australia, because the regulations, the rules are very, very different. So in Toina, we're allowed to do manipulations, we're allowed to do adjustments, which is considered out of scope in Western countries unless you're a chiropractor. We also learned this thing where it's called like zhenda, which is kind of like a mini scalpel. It's a very thick needle, and you go in and it's kind of like you go in and just go into a trigger point and you release that trigger point. I can't use that in Australia. Unfortunately, that's out of my scope as well. Of course, I'm not doing manipulations, fire needling, lots and lots of bloodletting. And there's so many different skills that I picked up from other teachers and other masters that I cannot use. So that's one of the things. So before going, I would really seriously think about, okay, what I want to learn, but how much does it actually apply, and how much can I bring it back, and can I actually use it back in my home country? So I would have to check the rules and regulations around that first, if my sole purpose is just to go learn and pick up a skill set in China. Which brings me to my next point, which is Chinese medicine. China itself is still a very traditional country. So to get things done, you need a little bit of smoothing out. So a lot of times when you really want to learn something, you have to get ready to get that red envelope. It's pretty much a pile of money. You stick it in a red envelope, you give it to him under the table, or you gift something to the master, and you get he ends up teaching you. But you don't know whether the money you give him, he will actually show you his secrets. So a lot of times it's still very closed off, and they don't share. They don't share unless it's their own son or a blood relative. They will not show you everything. They're not completely transparent. So that is one. And even in a hospital setting, a lot of the teachers, Lao She, they are not transparent. So they will tell you things in half truths, or sometimes the acupuncturist will have a secret point and he'll kind of cover the point, or he'll tell you different points. I'm not saying all the teachers, like I have really, really great teachers, but some, not saying who, some teachers still had their own secret points that they would only tell their inner circle. And even that inner circle didn't really know if that was actually what they were doing. So that's one of the disadvantages, I would say. In terms of being transparent and open and learning, I would say I learned more in my continuing education seminars in Australia. I think Dr. Richard Tan has a really great continuing education program, continuing education seminar where he teaches you his balance method, which I learned later on that that teacher with the secret points, it was actually pretty much the Master Tongue system and the Dr. Tan balance system. But he would always kind of tell students the opposite thing. He would say, hey, read this, memorize this poem and memorize it backwards and forwards and you'll get it, and it kind of just leads you the wrong direction, as if, because China is nothing against them, but it's still very competitive. So it's kind of like in Chinese they say, you're stealing my rice bowl, so you're stealing my livelihood. So if I give you all my points and things that actually work, then you will actually overcome me, overtake me, and make me look bad. So it's a lot of competition going on. So in terms of transparency, I would say learning the skills in Chinese medicine, it's still kind of an issue. And the next point I wanted to bring up was is a disadvantage and an advantage at the same time. So we saw so many patients, like, so in China when we did our internships, we would work together as a team. So on any given day you would see probably about as a team, you'd probably see anywhere from 30 to 40 patients in the morning and then 30 to 40 in the afternoon on a busy day. So a lot of these times, these patients, you see so many patients, right? And you get so much experience. But a lot of times with the patients, you actually don't get to follow up with them because some of them disappear, they drop off of care, and you actually don't know, because it's so many people, you don't really know what's working and what's not. So sometimes they are bound with, say for instance, if someone came in with Bell's palsy. So what the Chinese medicine professor they would do is they would give him steroids but give them acupuncture at the same time. So there's not a lot of testing, A/B testing going on. It's okay, let's throw the entire kitchen sink at it and see what happens. So sometimes they would get better, sometimes they wouldn't, and sometimes we wouldn't even know at all. So just because it's not as organized, and we weren't taking case notes and studies as systematically as you would in a Western country. So basically, in conclusion, those are all the advantages and disadvantages of studying long-term in China, Chinese medicine, and acupuncture. So it all really depends on you, what your goals are. Is it clinical? Are you looking to learn a new language? Are you looking to live in another country? Are you looking to get married? Are you looking for experiences? For me, I would say clinically skill-wise, I wasn't able to use a lot of the skills that I learned. It gave me a basic foundation of Chinese medicine, of acupuncture, and I was able to use it as a basic jumping off point when I started my practice in Australia. But just keep in mind, a lot of these skills that you learn in China, a lot of these fancy things, shiny objects that you see in China, you're not able to use. So if you are thinking about doing it, just keep that in the back of your mind. But for me, in my personal opinion, if I was in my 20s and I had no responsibilities of taking a family or bills or a mortgage to pay, and I can move over, I think it was definitely worth it for me, because at where I was at my point in my life, so I made connections, I made friends that I still keep in touch with even to this day, and all over the world. I can travel anywhere and know I have a friendly face that can pick me up at the airport and meet them there. For me, that was definitely worth it as well. And most importantly, I met my wife in China. So if you have studied in China or have experience living in China or over in China for a long period of time, or if you are a student or a practitioner on the fence of whether you should invest your time, please make sure to leave a comment below and leave your questions, and I will get back to it, or I can make another video for that as well. So thanks for watching, and make sure to subscribe if